Welcome to my channel, where your adventure into the future starts right now. Step into a vibrant universe filled with groundbreaking technology, breathtaking alien landscapes, and exhilarating sci-fi narratives that challenge your imagination. From daring explorations of distant galaxies to haunting journeys through dystopian societies, we uncover the most captivating stories and innovative ideas that will shape the world of tomorrow. Subscribe today and join us on an incredible intergalactic voyage that promises to inspire and thrill. The stars were the stage, the planets their audience, and the cosmic dance of life chaotic, unpredictable, and endlessly fascinating was the show. Across the vast stretches of the galaxy, countless civilizations had emerged and flourished, each with its own unique culture, art, and entertainment. From grand symphonies sung under the moons of Zarthal to the mesmerizing rhythmic dances of the Tsalar, every species had its own way of expressing itself. Yet, there was one thing that no one could predict: the cosmic revolution that began with a seemingly trivial thing: Earth's comedy shows. It all started with a transmission. Just a snippet of Earth's cultural output, one of the countless media streams beamed into space, perhaps by accident, or perhaps by some cosmic irony. The beings of ZHYR, a technologically advanced race of silicon-based creatures from the fifth quadrant, were the first to hear it. Their species had never known humor in the way humans did. They were a deeply analytical and logical people whose society revolved around the pursuit of knowledge and efficiency. To them, life was a complex problem to be solved, and emotions were simply secondary considerations. One of their exploratory vessels, passing through a previously uncharted section of the Milky Way, intercepted the signal. Initially, the transmission was dismissed as nothing of consequence, mere noise, irrelevant to their noble quest for knowledge. But when their crew began to study the signal, it quickly became clear that this was no random, meaningless broadcast. It was something structured, organized. A pattern. And it was funny. The signal was a clip from an old Earth comedy show, a stand-up routine from the 21st century, where a human comedian humorously described the absurdity of everyday life. At first, the ZHYR didn't understand much of it. The references were alien to them, the tone, the pacing, the sharp wit, it was all so foreign. Yet, there was something captivating about it. The comedian's voice, filled with energy and rhythm, and the reactions of the audience, bursting into laughter at every twist and punchline, were so vivid and energetic that it stirred something deep inside the ZHYR. It was a sensation they had never experienced: amusement. The concept of humor was utterly new to them, but like everything else, the ZHYR were keen learners. The more they listened to Earth's comedy shows, the more they began to decipher the subtleties of humor: satire, wordplay, observational comedy, dark humor, and with each discovery, they grew more fascinated. They began to realize that what they had perceived as a trivial, frivolous art form was, in fact, a complex and sophisticated reflection of human culture. Humor, they concluded, was not just about amusement. It was a way to understand the world, to cope with the chaos of existence, to challenge the status quo, and to find connection between individuals and across vast divides. Soon, the ZHYR were not just studying Earth's comedy, they were obsessed with it. They began to broadcast the shows throughout their civilization, becoming avid fans, replicating the jokes in their own social circles, and even developing a strange, new form of social interaction that revolved around humor. They formed comedy clubs in the cities of their homeworld, laughing at jokes they had only partially understood, yet feeling a strange sense of camaraderie and joy with others who had also become enchanted by these Earth broadcasts. As their culture began to embrace humor, something extraordinary happened. ZHYR scientists, scholars, and artists who had long been regarded as the pillars of their society found themselves no longer the only icons of cultural significance. The comedic performances they had consumed so voraciously were inspiring them to create their own works. However, the nature of this new creation was unconventional, to say the least. What began as an imitation of human comedy began to transform into something uniquely ZHYR, a kind of abstract, intellectual humor fused with an understanding of the absurdity of their own existence. But the ZHYR were not the only ones to be affected. Soon, the transmission reached other civilizations. The Ilmi, an insectoid species known for their hyperintelligence but lack of social cohesion, were the next to encounter Earth's comedy shows. To their surprise, the jokes, especially the slapstick and physical comedy, sparked a cultural renaissance. Their ultra-logical, hyper-intellectual society had long dismissed anything that couldn't be reduced to pure data or scientific inquiry. But now, with the influx of Earth's comedic genius, the Ilmi began to realize that laughter didn't have to make sense. In fact, it often made more sense when it didn't. The Ilmi, in their typically swift manner, adapted Earth's humor into their own traditions, creating elaborate performances where the absurdity of physical humor met the meticulousness of their engineering precision. Their stage shows became a fusion of intricate mechanical systems and utterly baffling, unpredictable performances that kept their audiences on the edge of their seats. They had become the first interstellar pioneers of a genre they had previously scoffed at: comedy as art, as intellect, as social commentary. It wasn't long before the Scar, a race of large, telepathic beings whose emotions were experienced as raw energy in the air around them, also stumbled upon Earth's comedy. Unlike the Zhyr or the Ilmi, the Scar were more attuned to the emotional currents that flowed through the universe. They had no need for words, only for connection. Humor, for them, was not just an intellectual pursuit, it was an energetic force, a wave that rippled through their telepathic consciousness. When they first encountered human comedic performances, the wave of joy and amusement they felt was unlike anything they had ever experienced. It wasn't just laughter, they felt the joy, the absurdity, and the shared experience all at once, as if the entire comedic performance had been wired directly into their very souls. The Scar quickly began to adapt Earth's comedy, not just in performance, but as a means of expression. Through their telepathic abilities, they could communicate with one another not only through thoughts, but through the emotional energy of humor. A joke wasn't just a sound or a visual, it was a shared psychic experience, a resonance that connected them on a level beyond the physical. Soon, entire star systems would host telepathic comedy performances, where beings of different species, from all corners of the galaxy, would come together to laugh, not at the same joke, but at the same shared emotional experience. With each civilization that encountered Earth's comedy, a new form of cultural exchange began to unfold. What had started as a simple broadcast of a human comedy show had blossomed into a galaxy-wide phenomenon. From the insect-like Ilmi to the telepathic Scar, from the logical Zhyr to the emotionally attuned Alcar, each species had embraced Earth's humor, filtering it through their unique perspectives and transforming it into something entirely new. The comedic art form had transcended its earthly origins, morphing into a universal language that spoke to the heart of every species, regardless of their origins, culture, or biological makeup. What was particularly fascinating, however, was the way the humans responded to this newfound galactic popularity. Initially, they were amused by the idea that their own entertainment, something they had once considered frivolous, had gained such a large and devoted following across the stars. But as they saw how these alien civilizations were changing because of it, how comedy had brought them together, inspired them, and allowed them to express themselves in ways they had never thought possible, they began to understand that humor was far more than just entertainment. It was a bridge, a connection, a universal thread that tied beings together across the vast distances of space and time. As this realization spread, Earth's comedians began to take on new roles, not just as entertainers, but as cultural ambassadors. They traveled to distant worlds, performing not just for their own species, but for an increasingly diverse and cosmopolitan audience. Their comedy became a means of diplomacy, a tool for understanding and resolving conflicts, a way of breaking down the barriers that had separated species for eons. The human stand-up comedians, the improvisers, the satirists, and the sketch artists were now seen as some of the most important figures in intergalactic relations, offering not just humor, but a unique perspective on the absurdities of life. Some comedians began performing live, sending out cosmic broadcasts to the far reaches of space, knowing that their jokes were being heard on worlds that they would never visit. They made jokes about universal topics about the nature of existence, the strange quirks of space travel, the misunderstandings between species, and, in doing so, they united galaxies with laughter. The most famous human comedians, whose routines had once been confined to small stages on Earth, now found themselves performing in front of vast audiences of diverse species, all eager to hear the humor that had captured the hearts of so many. It wasn't long before human comedy shows were adapted into all forms of entertainment across the galaxy. The ZHYR, once stoic and emotionless, were now producing highly popular comedy holoseries that combined their intellectual rigor with Earth's absurdity. The ILMI produced holographic slapstick performances that amazed even the most jaded critics, combining their technological prowess with humor that defied reason. And the SCAR, using their telepathic abilities, brought an entirely new dimension to the comedic experience, one that transcended language altogether. Their performances became emotional symphonies, where every burst of laughter was felt as a shared surge of joy across entire civilizations. But what was perhaps the most profound aspect of the phenomenon was how Earth's comedy helped to reshape the way the galaxy viewed life itself. Humor, which had once been dismissed as frivolous, had become a cornerstone of cultural expression, a tool for building unity, and a universal language that could transcend even the deepest divides. What the aliens had discovered through their exposure to Earth's comedy was that laughter wasn't just about humor, it was a way of seeing the world, of making sense of the chaos of existence, of finding beauty in the absurd, and, perhaps most importantly, of connecting with others. And as the universe continued to expand, one joke at a time, it was clear that humanity had unwittingly become the galaxy's greatest cultural export. A single human laugh, once confined to Earth's television screens, had reverberated across the stars, changing the course of galactic history in ways no one could have ever predicted. Earth's comedy had not only entertained, it had united an entire galaxy, forging bonds between species that would never have otherwise existed. Through humor, humanity had shown that even the most improbable things, laughter, joy, and connection, could transcend the barriers of space, time, and difference, making them not just survivors in the cosmic theater, but cultural superstars.